Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. We're again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's poor performance against Glasgow and the rest of the other Pro 12 fixtures, and also look forward to our game next weekend in the RDS against Clonettley. Well, boys, first round of Pro 12 matches, maybe a bit of a changing of the guards in some respects, insofar as two Scottish teams won, more Welsh teams won than Irish teams, and obviously the Italians still stayed the same and were beaten in both their games.
Yeah, I know we have to pretend that there is, just for the sake of the Welsh, because otherwise their feelings will be hurt and they'll go off and break up with their sheep. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, not much has changed. The Welsh teams, beat two Italian teams. One drew, two beat Italian teams. One lost to Connacht. Leinster lost. The best team in the league lost to the second best team in the league in the final. Mm-hmm. And Munster, who are a bit not great these days, are still trying to find their feet, lost to Edinburgh, who are in kind of the same boat. So to be perfectly honest with you, I think basically what we saw was people are actually realising that the league over the last couple of years is actually not bad, and that only this year are they realising it, because the results are the same as they were the last couple of years. I mean, we've lost in Scotland before, multiple times we've lost in Scotland before. We've lost on the first day before, multiple times we've lost on the first day
more
before.
often than not.
So to a certain extent, it's it's totally different, but exactly the same.
Yeah, well, there's a mitigating factors to Leinster losing their opening games. One is that the RDS, since we moved to the RDS, it's never ready. So because of the horse show, obvious reasons and all that. So we always tend to get an away fixture first. I think the last time we had a home fixture was in Donnybrook against Edinburgh.
The last time I think we had a home fixture, first off, in the Pro 12 or in the Celtic League, was the year of the World Cup.
07.
Yeah, the 2007 World Cup. So all the fixtures were late.
Donnybrook against Edinburgh.
Yeah. No.
It was the first season of the RDS, wasn't it? We played Clonettley, was it?
Yeah, and it was late because of the.
You're right. Yeah.
The whole season kicked off late because of the World Cup.
It was the year before we had.
That was the last time we were beaten as well. Yeah, by Clonettley.
It was quite a tonking as well. It was a defeat that lived in Michael Cheika's subconscious for a long time. It still won. Indeed, he still talks about it to this day.
A point of order: the Scarlets fans. The 0.000 Scarlets fans that watch us every week will be appalled to hear themselves called Clonettley, because that's actually a different team to the Scarlets these days.
Of course it is.
But anyway,
it doesn't matter. Nobody comes out to watch either.
Well, and nobody from there watches us, so it doesn't matter at all.
Well, anyway, Glasgow beat us at the weekend. Turned into a bit of an exciting. Well, it was going to look like it was going to be a whitewash after the first half an hour. But
if Sky had scripted their opening weekend of Pro 12 action, they couldn't have done it any better. Ulster versus Scarlets was a roller coaster of entertainment. I mean, maybe some of the quality, certainly defensively, mightn't have been up there, but certainly the entertainment was top notch. It even had what every rugby fan wants, a Liam Williams red card. I mean, it was perfect. And then for the connoisseur at our game against Glasgow, they mightn't have been as outwardly entertaining, but a lot.
Not for us, anyway.
There was an awful lot to offer, particularly in the way Glasgow played. Glasgow seemed to have taken the way that we played under Joe Schmidt, that quick offloading style, and taken it, maybe playing it even a bit quicker. They played a kind of a tacky style of rugby. It was really nice to watch. Really effective as well. But I think it does show the quality on our side. We were wiped off the pitch by Glasgow, and at the end it took a last minute penalty for them to win. Yeah,
well. It was all about collisions, especially in the first half. We didn't win the collisions. When a Glasgow player hit us, he usually made a few metres. When we hit Glasgow players, there was somebody like Cian Healy hitting them. There was two of them every time, and he stopped on the gain line. Poof, So
we seemed very predictable.
We were predictable, and we were flat-footed, and we weren't getting any head of steam up before we took the ball. We looked like we hadn't really got a coherent plan. But basically, I would put a lot of that down to what's going on in the head. They just weren't mentally prepared. Now, whether that's because the people coaching us didn't prepare us mentally, or whether the players weren't switched on, or whether
I don't think the coach can be held accountable for 28 missed tackles.
Absolutely not. No.
And when you see, one of our best players and one of the best players in his position in the world, Cian Healy, having a game that he's going to
forget.
want to forget, falling off tackles like which we've never seen
Well,
him do.
when you see somebody like Sean O'Brien Sean missed 5 tackles. Now
Allegedly.
he made 22 on top of that. So it just shows that he does know how to tackle and he's quite good at it. But there is an element of personal responsibility. Players do have to take personal
Of
responsibility.
course.
It's all very well and fine. And yes, there are elements of the performance that a coach has to be blamed for, the selection in particular, which he got wrong. But players have to take personal responsibility.
I totally agree. But the point about people falling off tackles and people, like the coach obviously wasn't out there trying to make those tackles, but did they leave stuff undone in preparation? Did they leave? Why are the guys so flat? Is it a mental issue with the players? Is it a mental issue coming from above, where it's they don't have the attention to detail of, say, someone like Joe Schmidt, who will have everything prepared?
I just think that the season is 9 months long, and the players don't peak for
There's a
9
certain
months.
amount of
And
tapering.
Well,
this team is rusty, and it knows when to peak, and it's not going to click in, and you don't win the league in the first week in September.
and you can't even really lose it in the first week of September.
As we've proved repeatedly.
Repeatedly. But if we were to play Glasgow again in 2 weeks' time, would we? If we'll have them at home eventually. I think it's in March, but by that time of the season, we should be well prepared. We should be peaking, as you say. And the other thing that actually stops us early rounds is
I don't think it matters. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter when you play Glasgow, because Glasgow are a very good team. I mean, Glasgow are probably the best team outside of. Certainly the second, they are the best. Well, they're currently the best team in the Pro 12 because they beat us. We're the champions and they beat us. So they're a very good side. So there is an element of that as well. It's all very well and say, "Oh, that's a disgrace. We lost." Yeah, but look, who we lost to.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a disgrace.
I'm not saying you are, no, but I'm saying there is an element of that. And the fact of the matter, now the coach does have. I mean, his selections, in particular in the second row, he got that wrong. He got the second row wrong. We were wiped out there. Marshall was not a factor in the game at all.
Hold on, a lot of the people who are giving out about the coach are also asking him to pick guys like Marshall.
Look, some of them are asking. They just want to see the new name, the shiny new player. That's all. But Marshall was picked at a position. I think Ben Marshall has a long and glorious future at Leinster, but not in the second row. I think it's telling that we picked up our play and we picked up our points once proper line-out threats were in place. Once we brought on Denton and once we brought on Kevin McLaughlin, once we had a proper functioning line-out, that's when we started to actually do some damage. Now, Glasgow played into that to a certain extent.
Dave, what's our second row going to be? What is our second row pairing going to be? All things going well and players aren't injured when we play Harlequins in the back-to-backs.
Well, it's going to be Toner +1. Because we can't. I haven't seen Kane Douglas play for Leinster.
Yeah.
But you got to guess that it's going to be him and Australian international.
You've got to assume that's the case, yeah. So it's going to be Devin Toner, and it's going to be. But
with possibly Mike McCarthy on the bench.
I'm going to give the Irish international Mike McCarthy the benefit of the doubt, but he does have issues. I mean, he is short. He is actually short for a second row. I mean,
he makes up for it.
He does make up for it
He's
next year. He's powerful. He is the undisputed European and world champion at the choke tackle. There is no question of that. So there's
he's
elements,
great. He hits the rucks and they stay hit, and he makes some great soak tackles.
That's why I was keen I wasn't keen to exclude him from selection. But it would be Devin Toner +1.
He's got a great engine on him too. So if you want someone to play 80 minutes,
But maybe we find ourselves in a fortunate situation that we have been in the past in other positions where we have guys that we can just cycle through the selection. But I do think we got the second row, the balance of the second row wrong.
Well, when you're going up against guys like Nakarawa and they've got Strauss in the back row, who's probably taller than anyone else that was on the
Johnny
starting
Gray
15.
as well, and
Johnny Gray. Like, there's 3 players that were taller than every player on the Leinster team. And I don't know about Fusaro, isn't he playing 6?
Yeah.
He's quite tall as well. So we were always going to be up against it in the line-out with that kind of disadvantage. Missing Devin Toner, who's also the primary line-out caller. No Leo Cullen this year. So
people talk about the importance.
That was the. And do you know what else I think? I think that one of the reasons we didn't kick for touch more often and get a bit of territory, because we didn't actually hit their 22 until 67 minutes.
Because we didn't have
the firepower in the line
yeah.
and the confidence in the
Well,
line.
what is it you're fond of saying? You've twice as many lineouts as scrums in a match.
Yeah.
You know? So in terms of as a
it's your primary.
as a means of securing primary possession.
We needed to, at certain points of that game, we needed to kind of settle it down and get up into their 22 and just that unfamiliar territory. Look around and go, hey, we're in the 22. Let's push on.
But you have to take your hat off to Glasgow. They were extremely positive,
they were,
and they seem to have a handle on us. Like they double teamed us all the time.
Yeah.
You know, when Sean O'Brien was running at them, like he made some great carries.
And Keane Healy.
But they did seem to double team.
Glasgow are the proof that A, regional rugby, and B, the Pro 12 model can work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the living proof of it. They've come from nothing. And went down kind of an evolutionary dead end for a long time between Hewenden and Firhill before they came upon Scottstown. And you saw, I don't know if you watched the game, it was vibrant. The ground, you could feel the atmosphere coming off the television.
Yeah.
You really could. It looked great. I'd love to have been over there. You know, it looked like great atmosphere, great place to watch a game.
But I mean, I remember going over there for a Heineken Cup match. It must be close to 10 years ago.
That was over in Hewenden.
And
they wouldn't even open the bar.
Yeah, but there was more Leinster fans at the match than Glaswegian fans. I mean, and they were, speaking to the few fans that were at it, they were really sort of, they were intimidated. But they were intimidated by the size of the football teams, and like, because they said, oh, well, rugby will never take off here. Like the taxman hardly knew where the ground was, clearly didn't know there was a match going on. And traditionally, the Glasgow area wouldn't be a hotbed of rugby. Whereas it's more, well, it is. But like compared to, we've mentioned it hundreds of times. But the other side of the country, where you've got Edinburgh, and then half an hour south of Edinburgh, the Borders, which is where real rugby fans are from. But they just even haven't embraced it whatsoever. But Glasgow have got it right.
I think there's an element that much as to a certain extent, there's a new rugby audience. That's
look at Connacht.
Yeah, that's divorced from, if you like, the traditional school, club, whatever. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there's a new audience that's come from somewhere else.
It's a great thing.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that the traditional audience is a bad audience.
Oh, sorry,
what I'm saying is there's a new audience that's come from somewhere new.
Mm-hmm.
And the Borders regions in Scotland don't appear to have positioned themselves to take advantage of this new audience.
Well, having a team would be a first.
Well, that's true, but I mean, they didn't want a team. They did everything in their power to make sure they didn't have a team.
I couldn't agree.
Whereas Glasgow, and maybe to a certain extent Edinburgh as well, by doing things like, I mean, they're stuck in that stadium, but they've tried things like bringing the crowd onto the side of the pitch and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, messy and all as it looks, at least it's an effort to bring to make the experience more visceral for the supporters. So does this new audience that these, if you like, regions or new kind of regions in Scotland seem to be tapping into? That the Borders regions never did, or never had an interest in maybe tapping into, or maybe weren't there because they were. I mean, they're not. Those are mainly rural areas, rural country towns. They're not cities. Maybe it's a city. Maybe because rugby in Ireland is still. I mean, you got the teams are based in Dublin, based in Galway, based in Belfast, based in Limerick and Cork. Maybe it's maybe it's an urban thing that this new audience is. Maybe it's growing out of that. I don't know.
Well, we get a big amount of supporters for Leinster coming from all around the province.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying that there's a new. We don't know what it is because it hasn't been defined yet, because it's so new. This new kind of rugby audience that's sprung up in the last 5-10 years.
There's probably more people now watch rugby than played it.
Yeah,
in the RDS even.
Yeah,
I'd say there's more people that have their first experience is possibly going to watch Leinster play.
Mm-hmm.
They've never played it in school or played it for a club.
Back in our day. Just taking when Leinster played the All Blacks in '89, I would say everybody that was in the RDS or in the Lansdowne Road, there was what 15,000 there. I'd say everybody in the stadium, or had played the game, or were the girlfriend / wife of someone who played the game.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's an entirely different paradigm.
And I'd say going back around that time that most people at an international match, like the 40,000 or 45,000 in Lansdowne Road, would have fallen into that bracket too.
Probably because to a certain extent how you sourced your tickets. I mean, you got your tickets from the club. That's how I got my tickets. That's how you got yours.
Don't forget though as well that Leinster, among other teams, have targeted families.
They have.
And families, you can't really bring your family to a soccer match as easy. It's not as young kids going to soccer matches. it's generally a bit more vociferous,
Mhm.
shall we say? And there's a lot of people getting angry and shouting and doing, stuff that
You didn't see me in the last 2 or 3 minutes here last Saturday watching the match.
or me, but
Yeah.
point I'm making is that it's a lot more family friendly kind of a place. You
Yeah.
can bring your kids. You don't have segregated crowds. You don't have all of that kind of.
Well, that's the model we followed. Is the family to a certain extent is attracting a family. Look at the RDS, as Mick Dawson's often said. The thing that the RDS has is space.
But like,
And it's the same. Sorry, just to in Thomond Park, they've done that on their back pitches or on the side pitches. They're doing the same up in Ravenhill. It's all about you get a family in and you've got them for life.
But like I remember years ago that Leinster sent over the marketing team to go to London Irish to see what they did. It's funny, and now that they're struggling to get 10,000 in the Majetski Stadium, where we were struggling to get 3,000 in Donnybrook. But now things have changed. We get 15 to 18,000. But like Sky have done a huge, even in only one weekend. Like they've sexed it up. They've given it the full
Big time,
Sky
yeah.
treatment, and it's not. It's not just them bigging it up. They're singing its praises. Like Scott Quinnell was kind of going, "I told you it was great," which I thought was a great sort of fill me up for the league. And considering the way it had been over the last number of years, particularly with RT, and even in some respects BBC Wales, who kind of looked down their nose at it, snide little comments like, it's not really the Aviva Premiership where we really want to be in, and I thought like Sky have in 1 week they.
I think we're all in agreement on that. I think
Sky,
everybody's
Sky
happy
did
about
what
it.
we expected Sky to do.
Yeah.
They just brought it was just quality. I mean, I have a certain, if you like, professional interest in terms of the actual broadcast pictures and the Astons used and the on-screen graphics and all that kind of stuff. And Sky are just
They are good, aren't they?
It just oozes quality what Sky do. I mean, TG Carr, God bless them, they have a much smaller budget. Now, I actually thought that I know you
They're
don't.
doing a bloody good job.
I think they're doing a good job, and I know you don't think they did, but maybe because you didn't understand it. But they hyped up Munster and Edinburgh in their own way.
Yeah, well, we come to that in a little while.
I thought they did their bit for it as well. I think the problem is that people don't know what the hell's going on a lot of the time.
Yeah, but it's nothing to do. I don't think it's nothing to do with the language. I just think when you turn on, like for instance, I was just watching the Viva Premiership, the highlight show yesterday, and they really make a big song and dance of it on BT. And in fact, the stadiums are fairly full. Like there's 60,000 odd in Twickenham, and there was a full house in Franklin's Gardens at the 2 matches or the 3 matches which I saw. And when you turn on and you see that, like I know they said there was 13,000 in Thomond Park. I'd say if there was 3,000 people in Thomond Park, it's
somewhere in between those two figures.
I think the figure's in around 7.5. That was the figure I heard as the accurate one. Not that to a certain extent, that's great for the TV companies. I mean, Munster don't care; they've sold the tickets. TV companies don't care; people are at home watching their advertising.
Yeah, but
everyone's a winner.
But it's the aesthetics of the league, Dave.
The aesthetics of the league. It looks bad for the aesthetics. That's kind of I was being a bit facetious there, but TG Carr do, but they are hampered. I mean, I simply don't understand why they don't just switch to HD at least on Serview. I mean, I know that they're doing it on UPC, but at least there is no way to watch the league in high def on free to view. There just isn't, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're gumming to show us high def, Dave.
No, that's right. It's not. Yeah.
So we'll have a look at Jack McGrath's try.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any coincidence that it kind of started when we had Kevin McLaughlin on the pitch and takes the line out. Our line out became a much more functional weapon.
Yeah.
And then it was just good organisation, really.
Must have been soul destroying for Glasgow to see it slip away so quickly. I mean, there was 2 minutes to the next try after this, but Jack McGrath in there underneath.
And that was a self-inflicted wound.
He had to struggle to get it down. There was he was nearly held up. There was a Glasgow hand underneath it.
But that was a self-inflicted wound from Glasgow. I mean, it was their ball. It was either their free kick or their penalty. And Nicola Matawalu got pulled back for a
lashing down
for lashing out, and that's the thing about him. I mean, he'll score a wonder try or do something incredibly stupid.
He nearly blew it for them near the end.
Blew it for them.
There he is, barely getting it.
Yeah.
Got it down just before Nigel ran around. Good work.
I thought it was actually on a Leinster leg.
Well, it was certainly on somebody's
It was
foot.
something
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
But he got it in the end anyway, which is the important thing.
And then, you know,
A couple of minutes later, then,
we were, as I said, we were 67 minutes getting into their 22, another 3 or so getting that try, and another 3 or so getting the next try. So, you know, bad and all as we played, like when you see a team that can do that, playing that badly.
Wonder kick here from
Oh, yeah.
Zane. As Stuart Barnes said in the day, it was a kick that was born
Altitude.
on the high veld.
Yeah.
It's a pity he didn't get to kick the ball when they kicked off to us. And,
Yeah.
when McGrath kicked out in the full.
He's one of the few players that you could say had a decent game, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
Shane Kirshner. He looked solid in everything he did. But that was just...
That's a
and there's
monster
an
kick.
element of luck, obviously, in it with an oval ball, in it going into touch rod and into touch and goal, but...
You still have to kick it that
you
far in
still
the
have
first
to kick
place.
it that far. It was awesome kick. And look at
And
him,
it-
he was getting them G'd up afterwards.
And then Glasgow, obviously we're watching the All Blacks in their two-man line out
The
in
scrum
the
half.
Rugby Championship, so they decided to try
Runs
it.
in, with
And,
great effect
Yeah, great effect.
for us.
Yeah. Whee!
And I think Tom Denton
He did
fell
well.
over with shock and just luckily fell over onto
But I think he did well there to get
No,
it
he
down.
did do well.
I mean, in fairness, he had to have his head up to see that the ball was coming over the top as well. I mean, it would have been easy. I mean, you don't expect the opposition hooker to do that. You have to be kind of clued in enough to see that it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, it was a great bit of business, and to stick in a game and not to let your heads drop when you're playing that badly, and to
Yeah.
come back, you know, it's good. It's a good sign for the team, you know, bad and all as they were playing, and it nearly won them the game.
It shows that no matter how, I mean, they were played poorly, but at least we know that the bounce back ability, to use a phrase, is still there. I mean, that the team ethos is good.
Yeah,
And that they are going to keep playing for the 80 minutes, as they say, and all those cliches.
yeah.
But, I mean, that's what they did. I mean, to a certain extent, a game we had no right to win. We're kind of disappointed, vaguely
Nearly.
disappointed to have
Yeah,
lost.
it would have been a tragedy, you know.
Oh, who cares?
We would have had a mask, and we would have, you know, a horse
Well-
called Black Bess, and you
Yeah,
know,
I'd-
we would have
I'd-
but to
required
go-
all of
but
those things.
I'd weep silent tears of shame and then get on with it, you know.
Yeah, but to walk away from Glasgow and
What would
get
it take?
a losing point away from home at the start of the
Was
season,
good.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
not the worst result in the world, you know.
Especially if you're 19-3
At,
down.
Oh, there you
at
go.
19-3, I would have eaten your harm for a losing bonus point. You know?
One
I'm glad you said
bad
arm.
one bad piece of news was, of course, Noel Reid getting injured just in the first minute. Like he looked, I thought he broke his leg when I saw it
Yeah,
first.
everybody thought knee, but apparently it's ankle,
Yeah,
and not as bad as we thought.
which is
So
good, but still, it was a shame because it would have nice to have seen, you know, that back line getting a bit of, but it got a bit disjointed then.
and it leaves us a bit with Darcy still out as well. It leaves us a little bit stuck at 12. You know, we're going to have to play 2 out halves now for. Which may actually end up giving us some benefit. They get a bit of time beside each other. it
Suits
might.
me. I think I think it might suit the system entirely.
You never know. But you know, it does leave us short of options. Like, do you put Collie O'Shea on the bench at 22, covering 12, or do you put Cathal Marsh
Cathal Marsh is,
on the bench?
is
Sure,
the way I
the
personally
sensible
go.
way is probably to put Cathal Marsh
But,
there. But
yeah, I'd personally go Cathal Marsh.
uh,
Because I think he's ready for the step up. I mean, he's had 2 years in the British and Irish Cup,
Yeah.
2 years successfully in the British and Irish Cup, leading the team in terms of
yeah.
from that
How
position.
old is he now?
It's 22, isn't he?
Is he 22? Yeah, he must be 22 thereabouts.
Don't quote me on it. I think he's 22, but he's certain. I mean, I think he's ready for the next level.
Absolutely, and he's the kind of an out half by the look of him that he has all the game management that is needed in that position. I mean, it's the one position where, you know, with all the flair that a player can have, like let's say Carlos Spencer, just to keep it far away from home. You know, with all the flair that a player like him or Ian Humphreys or whoever would have, it's game management. It's the boring stuff you need.
It was always Andrew Murphy that got the caps.
Exactly, it's the guy who can nail the kicks, who doesn't panic under pressure, who can direct the game and those around him. That's what you need in an out half, and that's seems to be the strength in Cathal Marsh's game. That in the limited bit I've seen of him, which is mainly B&I Cup.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we just rattled through a few of the other results. Obviously, Munster we spoke briefly about. They were beaten at home to Edinburgh 13-14. Poor game. And
In a way, I'd be more worried about them than us. You know, I'd laugh it off to a degree with us. With them, I wouldn't be as quick to laugh it off. Okay, it's the start of a new coaching regime. It's they're going to take a little while to sort themselves out. But there's just something looks a bit rotten in the state of Denmark.
I don't think Munster are a very good team. Not when I say a very good team, I mean in comparison to previous Munster teams that were amongst the best in Europe. This is not a very good Munster team. I don't think the Edinburgh team was as good as Munster. What the Edinburgh team had was organisation and a plan, which Munster didn't have. Right. I mean, Munster's plan was
you could argue that Edinburgh played pretty much their full strength team, where Munster certainly wasn't there.
No, I don't know about that. Yeah, there would be an element of that, but I mean, Munster's game plan was, let's just try and get 10 metres out and give it to CJ. I mean, that was the plan. That was
for all I could 2 see. Tries or something. Though,
yeah, well, I mean, to a certain extent it worked, except for the other 90 metres in the pitch where he did nothing. But that part of the plan worked. But then you see, it's a new coaching team, so you can't get a coaching team, whatever ethos they have, you can't get it across in one match.
Well, look at Joe Schmidt. Didn't he lose the first 3 games
and the dressing
allegedly the dressing
room? Joe Schmidt seems to be the example that proves almost anything. But no, but in terms of a new coaching team, new players coming in, a new way of playing. Maybe new realisation that they have to actually play a new way because they don't have the forward domination that Munster traditionally have built their success on.
And rumour today that they've lost their star.
Well, they've lost that castle from Game of Thrones for the remainder of 2014. Now I'll never get to know anything about him, but he's gone for the remainder of 2014, which is hard. Look for a guy coming into a new team, he wants to hit the ground running to make a good impression, and he doesn't get a chance to do so. So that's unfortunate. So
it means Jason won't have to learn how to say Tyler Blayendal, though.
Yeah, it was.
That was an easy one.
It was Karen Hall I was getting confused with, but anyway, So I mean, Munster are kind of, you put a pin in it, see how they do next week, kind of thing. They're not the team that they once were, and I think it was telling that. Was it Donegal Callahan said people aren't afraid of Thomond Park anymore? I mean, that's the 3rd league game on the bounce they've lost there.
Yeah, that's particularly scary.
That was that was a jaw dropper of a statistic, actually.
Yeah. Once the fear factor goes, I mean, that's half their game. You remember the big deal when Leicester with Ian Humphreys at out half won there in the Heineken Cup, and I think that was the first time they lost a Heineken Cup game in Thomond Park, and it was like. You think Leicester won the feckin' World Cup, and that's how important it was, how intimidating a place Thomond Park was, and it's not going to be that intimidating if they're going to lose to Edinburgh and
but
second string Ulster.
When there's swathes of empty seats and you can read Munster in the seat, in the plastic seats, and behind both goals is empty.
To a certain extent, there is some mitigation. I mean, there was that.
It's a Friday night and it's hard to get up from Cork for a game.
And there was that granny winding her way through the streets of Limerick. Every time I turn on the television, it's fucking giant granny. I don't know what the hell was going on.
You thought you were in some weird perverse movie there.
I thought Miriam was dosing me with LSD or something. I don't know. But something was happening. But it's still a very poor crowd for it. For a club like Munster that's always had a great support. That was very weak. But again, early days.
Yeah. But would you see Leicester? Would you see Northampton? Big teams in England that are from I'm not saying the cities are the same size, but with the same kind of a regional town. That's really the only focus within the community is that rugby club.
But you see, the thing is, it's not the only focus within the community.
Well, Leicester have the soccer club as well, which is probably
that game
bigger.
was on Friday night, but on Sunday, I mean, there was a huge focus within Munster elsewhere.
Yes,
the All-Ireland hurling final.
I'm talking about Limerick now.
Limerick.
It was Tipperary that were in it. It wasn't. It wasn't the hotbed of rugby.
It's not all. You can't say that all everyone who follows Munster is from Limerick because
no, of course not. Of course not. But it was one.
There is a big focus.
It was one county, Dave. Like the fellas from Cork and from Kerry and from Waterford aren't going to go and travel to Croke Park to support.
Well, no, they wouldn't go necessarily to support Tipperary, but they go to watch the match. I mean, the All Ireland hurling final, I would expect from a province that includes Tipperary, Clare, and Cork in its if you like, I would expect that to have an effect on attendance. It'd be different if it was Ulster or whatever.
But the point being, though, Dave, that it's the opening day of the season. You would expect a better.
I'm not saying
crowd.
that. I'm saying it's a poor crowd, but I'm saying that there are mitigating factors.
Okay, fine, but there's big events in Dublin. I know it's a much bigger city and everything, but and also in England, there's bigger events on in these towns, but still people go out and support their club. And I just thought it was for the opening day of the season, where certainly I'm sure the three of us are dying to get to go and see a match.
Yeah.
And there'll be a near capacity crowd. I don't think it'll
but
be
we're
full.
Sados, come on.
Well, that's true. But I just think that there would be there was let down by a very poor crowd.
Oh, I think it was, and I mean, I think there are elements that have to be looked at in terms of, you know, how it's marketed and things like that. But I think that there are mitigating factors. I do think Friday nights don't suit them. I think Leinster prefer Friday nights and Munster hate them.
Give us a few. Give us a few more games on Sky. Give us a bit of marking. Let the league, because you know one of the things that the English PRL guys were always saying to us was that this will really improve your league, and this, you know, we were going, leave it out. It's none of your business what we do with our league. But they're actually dead right. Like the fact that the 8th and 9th place, well, effectively probably the 7th and 8th place are going to be in a playoff away in England and France. At the end of the day, gives people something to play for. The fact that the top 6 plus 1 are going to be in the Heineken Cup.
Did I read
and
somewhere
next
that
year,
the
the fact
English
that
clubs are trying to get rid of playoffs in their league?
That's just Mr. Saracens,
Right, okay.
because they realise it doesn't suit them. Even though they voted for it in the first place and thought it was a great idea back then. It was only Gloucester didn't like it then. But
there was even talk of the winners of the championship just going straight up, because they're see that a lot of the teams that go up from the championship go straight back down again, particularly the smaller clubs like London Welsh or Worcester or something like that. And as a result, they're saying, well, why should they have a playoff in the championship? Because you've could have a team that could be 20 points behind the eventual winners, and then they fluke it into the
hockey.
it's fairly convoluted, the playoff and the championship as well. It's home and away and all that kind of nonsense. But anyway, we're straying off the.
Anyway, like just about, there was a great match on as a precursor to Leinster's match with Scarlets against Ulster.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it was 32 all, and a great try by Trimble in the last minute.
Yeah, those games don't. You don't see them too often. You don't see draws in rugby too often for a start, and you don't see
very
games,
high scoring draws.
You don't see games that are high scoring draws where both sides are probably really happy with the 3 points. You know, I mean, they both got a try bonus. They both got exactly 4 tries, and they both got their 2 points for a draw. So you know, that's as close as you can come to winning. You're only a point away from winning the game. You know, whether it comes down to a shootout between Scarlets and Ulster for a place at some stage of the season, then they might not feel so good about it. But I think both teams, in some ways, especially Ulster, because they were away, you know. And I seem to remember being laughed at last week when I said that the Scarlets had a decent pack at this stage.
They didn't win. I said there's no way Scarlets would win, and I was right.
But they have
a decent pack,
and they have a nice set of backs that put together some very nice
really
moves.
Key. I mean, really key.
And they also have the liability, Liam Williams, who got binned for and eventually red carded for 2 stupid penalties.
Stupid is as stupid does.
But it means that he's going to be absent for the game against Leinster.
The most thing they had on their side was some fairly comedy defending from Ulster in the 10, 12, 13 channel.
Yeah.
I mean, there was guys pouring through there. It was like...
And Ulster have some bad news with Henderson out now for...
Is he?
Yeah, Henderson's out for till next year.
No, I didn't read that.
With a hip problem.
I saw something about it. All right, yeah.
And they've also, I think Olding is going to be out for a couple of games as well.
He looks good. He looks in form. It's a shame for him.
Great player, yeah.
He looks. I thought he had a very mixed game. I thought. I thought he looked brilliant with the ball in hand. I mean, we know he's a great player, but he looked like a guy who hadn't played in quite a while, because I mean, we were talking about the gaps between 10, 12 and 13. A lot of them were of his making.
Yeah, well, any team with Ian Humphreys in it.
Well, that's true. I mean, he was trying to get close to Humphreys to protect him, but it looked like a guy who hadn't played at that level for quite a while. I mean, and he hasn't. So, I mean, you can excuse it, but
he's a lovely step, though.
Oh, he's a wonderful footballer. Footballer. Oh, I mean, these are just temporary problems. These are good. This will be fixed by another game and another day on the training park. You know, it's not like it's not like it's part of his game.
Yeah.
But you know, he had a bit of a nightmare as well as a bit of a dreamer on his comeback. That's all.
So, and obviously Connacht then beat Dragons 16-11.
A game we know nothing about.
No, but
wasn't there highlights of that somewhere?
I think on the Pro 12 website. But it was like Connacht had lost 16 of their games last season, you know, so to get their first win under the belt, especially against, say, the fourth best or the fourth ranked,
the team that would be seen as their, if you like, peers,
Equivalent.
in the Welsh, their equivalent in the Welsh setup. So I mean, it's a good start anyway, and without some of their star players, and
Well,
again, speaking about injuries, it seems to be the thing. Didn't I see somewhere that Jay Keenan has picked up a
for some period of time? Yeah,
and he's a big player for them because he's a superb player.
yeah. And they were missing their big signings, Mullane and
Yeah.
Bundyaki, you know, who could, if their pack can provide the ball, those guys could
They
cut
had
a few
Quinn Roux,
teams. They had Quinn Roux. Did he play well?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. Hope he did.
yeah. So we turn our attention to next week's fixture, where obviously we're playing the Scarlets, who, as we mentioned, Liam Williams could be missing.
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion
No.
yet that he's going to be missing.
I think once you get a red card, you're up before the beat.
There is definitely a hearing of some sort,
Yeah.
a citing commission or whatever the hell they call it. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, especially seeing as it's made up of 2 yellows.
Yeah, but it is Liam Williams. I mean, he could walk into that. He could walk into that room and piss on the desk. Like, you
You
never
could
know.
eat the biscuits wrong.
There was an interesting article in today's Irish Times, just going through a few of the players who could potentially be back for next week. Toner, they seem to be. Cullen seemed to
Toner and
be.
Heaslip
Yeah, they
are
seem
the
to be
men.
kind of talking him up. And then obviously there's a few lads who are coming into contention. I think he said Rob Carney's out, not out, but won't be ready for another couple of weeks. Yeah.
And Darcy won't be, and Fitzgerald, well, we already
It seemed
knew,
that
won't
Darcy
be.
was closer than Luke Fitzgerald and Dave
Yeah.
Carney. Like, we know Dave Carney was out for a considerable time with his injury.
Carney and Darcy are running around with the team, and I just don't think they've enough contact work done to get into the side next week.
I don't think we were short in the backs anyway. I don't.
12 is a bit of an issue with Reid and
maybe
Darcy
a bit,
missing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we have Madigan there. I mean, certainly for starters, obviously we have to have cover, but I think for starters we're okay.
He must be getting a bit of a pain now, just being shunted. I know he probably wants to play in whatever position he's, but if he wants to make a statement this season, particularly, that I'm better than Goppert,
I think,
he's
to be
going to be
honest,
played at 12, and then
in terms of next season, when Johnny Sexton's coming back,
I think
his
his
Ian
best chance of
Madigan's
staying at Leinster is making a
is
name for
making a
himself at 12.
yeah. Like,
This is his best chance.
Darce is probably going to, if he does play after the World Cup, it won't be a whole lot. Johnny Sexton's back. Jimmy Goppert's contract's up, but Madigan's isn't. Madigan's another year.
yeah.
So
Does Madigan have the size
the
for
best
12?
thing.
Yeah.
He's a great tackler.
Yeah.
That's one of his.
I mean,
good.
he's actually quite a concussive hitter, and he's very powerful.
Yeah,
for a little
I
guy,
think
he's
he's
very powerful. Yeah,
I think he'd be excellent.
I'd have
as
no
well.
problems. I'd have no queries about his physical ability to play the position whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Him and Johnny Sexton, and the fact that he can cover at 10 and 15 just makes him.
I think Felipe installed in young out halves in the province
an ability to play 12.
a requirement that they they have a physical presence, because he set the standard, and he had a physical presence and brought
Certainly
a physical
did,
presence to the position. You see Johnny has that physical presence, you see Madigan has that physical presence, even Colin Marsh, who is a bit willowy and stuff, it's still quite a hard hitter.
Yeah.
So I think the model that was set back in 2003, 2004 for future Leinster out halves was one where they had a physical presence, and I think Madigan embodies that. I mean, you look at McKinley. McKinley was a big hard lad as well before he got it. Unfortunately, had to move on.
He's playing again,
He's playing again as well.
With
But
his
I mean,
glasses,
he was
goggles.
a physical guy as well. So I don't have any fears of Madigan in that.
I think Madigan could be a revelation at 12 going forward in Leinster, and the fact that he, as I say, that he can fill in. Remember the criticisms of him previously, where he came on and set the fucking league alight at 10 at the end of games, or coming on to replace Sexton at 50 minutes or at 60 minutes, or and then when Goppert was here, anytime he got a start early last season, it was I think Matt O'Connor was on record as saying something about the front end of games. So he's got to learn to manage the front end of games. That was the worst accent I ever heard.
I never knew Matt
But
O'Connor was from the
it's
high
from
belt.
the high belt, yeah. Anyway, that was the criticism of him, that's what he needed to do. Now, there might be a bit of a tragedy if he doesn't get to develop that, but the upside is if he gets to play at 12, he could be there for a number of years for Leinster.
I think he could make his home at 12 for Leinster and for Ireland for a long time. Now, he'll certainly be in the mix for Ireland in that position, but certainly for Leinster, I think that could be his best position, because I'm just not sure that he has the ability to control a game that's moving anyway, the way that Sexton does. Sexton can change the way a game is moving, whereas Madigan's able to ride a game. Sexton is the waves beneath the game, if you know what I mean.
Possibly, I think I know what you mean. But yeah, exactly. And if he gets a run there, it can only be to everyone's benefit. Joe Schmidt, Matt O'Connor, us, him. Bring it on.
I think it could be a benefit as well to say Gordon Darcy. I think in the absence of having not seen this Teo guy, Teo yet, I think that Darcy at 13, the way we played in the Pro 12 final last year, and I think Madigan's handling the danger he presents as a breaking threat.
That's what I was about to say.
His ability to pull opposition players onto him
and to play a second 5/8 role.
Yeah.
From his experience at
gives Darcy that extra split second to use his attributes in an attacking sense to make Darcy look better. Maybe prolong Darcy's career that extra year. You never know. So I think Madigan at 12 is a genuine kind of could fix a lot of problems for Leinster.
Isn't that what
certainly with Sexton coming home?
Was Darcy himself?
Could you see Kirshner moving to 13 at some stage?
An experiment, yeah.
Like I'm just thinking, like if Carney's back in, you got to pick him at 15, you guess, and then. You can't have a Springbok sitting on the bench 2 seasons in a row. He's going to walk.
Well, from what I saw in the final last year, it's a very minor thing, but he for Darcy's try, the step outside he took to get outside his man to create the space for Darcy.
Yeah.
For Darcy's try was exactly the kind of move you'd expect a 13 to make.
Yeah, well, he is that kind of a versatile player. I think he's happiest at full back, in fairness.
Yeah.
But, there's so many players that can slot in. You've just mentioned Kirshner, you've mentioned Darcy. We've seen Luke Fitzgerald there, we've seen Fergus McFadden there, we've seen Brendan Mackin there. We've got this guy Ben Teo who's going to be possibly there. That's a lot of players. You give them all a try. We'll be here. That's... Probably if they all had 3 games each, that's nearly most of the season gone. So, I'd say we'll have to make a choice early, especially as Teo is going to miss any kind of significant contribution to the first couple of Heineken Cup matches. If he does play in that position in the Heineken Cup, it'll be probably after Christmas. So we've got to find somebody to hit the ground running with, and I think probably Darcy is the best. Darcy and Madigan as a centre combination is probably the most ready to go that we have at this point.
It's the one that you could drop in. It's already formed, as it were. I mean, there are other options out there, but the one that's most fully formed as such is Madigan Darcy. So
meanwhile, back at the Scarlets game, they could cause us a few problems. They are away from home, but as I said last week, they do have the makings of a very good pack.
I still don't believe it.
Something they have never had.
I don't hold with that at all.
They were missing
crazy talk.
They were missing Samson Lee last week, and who else were they missing? They were missing somebody else.
That news number 8 they signed from Wasps was looking good.
He looks good. I think he could be easily worked out though. He's a big guy, so you probably move him around a bit, and you could. I'd say he's the kind of guy that'll make an impact in his first half season and then
video analysis
be worked out.
I mean, it's the Nick Williams factor to a certain extent.
Possibly, but still, you still have to stop him.
Oh, yeah.
He's a big guy, and
it's the same thing with Nick Williams. You still have to try and stop him.
Exactly. Nick Williams can make the ball look like a Cadbury's cream egg as well, though, when he walks around with it in his mitt.
But I think like what
if it was a Cadbury's cream egg, you'd probably eat it.
But in some ways, that I think they're kind of in their backs are a mini version of Leinster. Like they have this production line. That they seem to produce these guys that come through the academy, and when the likes of Jonathan Davies goes or North go, that they have a ready-made replacement coming through. They're normally called Williams, but they come through. They seem to just produce these
and they have
very exciting backs every
best
season.
centre, bar 2, to play in the Pro 12. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it that Megan King, with the exception of O'Driscoll and Darcy, is the best centre to have played in the Celtic League.
He's drifting towards bus pass territory.
He's drifting towards there, but I mean, he's taken 3 defenders with him.
yeah. No, he's still got the smarts. Just like the great man himself. When he lost the bit of pace, he had lots of other attributes to make up for it. Years of experience mainly.
I think that guy's. I mean, watching him play has been a pleasure over the last decade, and certainly since he's been in the Pro 12. I remember seeing him play for Clonettley against Leinster in Donnybrook in a Celtic League match, and the first half they tore us apart through him actually, and he got a dead leg just at the start of the second half, and it reduced his effectiveness. And they were 20 points up at half time, and we came through in the second half, and they were kind of carrying Regan King, and we came through and won the game. I think it ended up 30 odd. The way the games against Scarlets often did between Leinster and Scarlets, because there is a similar ethos in the way they play. But Regan King was just putting guys into space and fooling players, and he was a wonderful player in his pomp.
The way we used to play, Dave. We don't play that way. We're Leicester now.
Well, that's what people say. Well, I take that the way Leicester play these days.
Well, we just touched on that for a moment. Like, you know, Matt O'Connor is shipping an awful lot of criticism. Like, we said like that he doesn't go out and miss 28 tackles himself, but at the same time, there is talk that we're moving away from the traditional Leinster method of playing.
It's an interesting hypothesis, and there is obviously some truth in it. What was it I heard said? Something like he always goes for the safe option, and he doesn't take risks, and he likes to use a bit of bosh rather than a bit of skill to get round. And you know, it sounded to me like somebody was describing Warren Gatland. You know, if we'd had Warren Gatland managing Ireland instead of Declan Kidney, would we be happier or sadder, or, you know, who knows? The game is changing, and you need, like, this notion that there's a way of playing that is running around people, it's pure, it's great, it's wonderful rugby, and then there's this way of playing that you play if you don't have any decent backs, which is you just bash the living crap out of everybody. There isn't two ways of playing the game. Well, there's many ways.
200 ways of playing the game.
But a successful team will play all of those, and you know, if you notice,
tailored
to their opposition
to
the players,
to the strengths they have and the weaknesses of the opposition.
But
now, I'm not convinced that it's always. Sorry for cutting across you, Jason. I'm not convinced that it's always tailored to the players that we have. You know, there are some times when I think that, you know, we play it a bit too safe, but it's definitely played to the opposition that we have. You know, look, we took Northampton by surprise in Franklin's Gardens last year, and, you know, ran around in vintage Leinster style. We cut the Glasgow apart in the Pro 12 final and ran around in vintage Leinster style. And there are certain times of the season when we've just turned it on and
at the right time
and turned it. You know, now I'm not. The worst thing about all the criticism of Matt O'Connor, from my point of view, is that it's turning me into a Matt O'Connor apologist, which I'm not. You know, I want to have the license to criticise him as well when I think he's not doing.
But one of the mantras that came out under Schmidt was you have to earn the right to go wide, which meant that the forwards have to beat the crap out of their opposition as well. And people seem to have, I don't know, rose-tinted glasses that Leinster under Schmidt flashed the ball at every opportunity.
Well, no, I mean, you look at the Heineken Cup final against Ulster. No, he is. He's never. Look at the Heineken Cup final against Ulster. We scored 5 tries that day. All of them scored by forwards. Yeah. I mean, Leinster were a forward. I mean, this is the thing. Leinster were a forward-oriented team under Matt O'Connor. Joe Schmidt. I mean, look at the big signings he made. The big signing he made was Brad Thorne, a forward. The way that we won games was close interpassing between forwards. The most important player was Nathan Hines. He was the key player in that. With Richard Strauss, Keane Healy, and Sean O'Brien passing between themselves. It wasn't
Redden, the big part.
But it was to a certain extent a 9-man game. But now it was a really, really nice 9-man game. But it was we didn't flash the ball that wide at all. A lot of stuff we did was those inside passes, guys coming inside rather than going outside. So to a certain extent, we played quite a narrow game. It's just that we played it in channels all across the pitch.
And then I think then that they created so much space because there was just mayhem going on. That then eventually the gaps appeared out in the backs, and Drico and Darce and all the lads.
It was the forwards that did the
damage. Exactly, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, look, I'm sure we're going to have more debates on this over the next 9 months. But I mean, quickly before we go, just
Speaking of which, congratulations to Bod and Amy.
that's right. Yeah, expecting
Oh,
our
yeah.
number 2.
Yeah.
Hopefully
a boy
triplets.
this time,
Triplets,
please.
3 boys.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, just a couple of both the Irish two other big Irish teams are playing the Italian teams. Ulster play Zebre, and Treviso play Munster now. Treviso have won that fixture for the last 2 seasons.
And I think they might be targeting it this year as well.
They Munster won 1 out of 4 or something
Is that right? Yeah.
crazy like that. Which that's not a statistic you'd be used to hearing.
It was one thing having Treviso as your bogey team when they had Michael Lina and Campese and Campbell Lamerton and David, or what's his name, Edgerton, and all those guys as
Willie
their backline.
Affingawi and
Yes.
boys.
Not nowadays.
Yeah. Well, like in
Did
fairness,
Checa
though,
play for them as well?
Checa played. No, he played for Parma.
Okay.
But like they have, like we got away a couple of. I think Sexton dropped
Oh,
a goal
yeah.
once. Was it to draw it or to?
Well, we were
To
the
win it,
first.
it
We
was
were the first Irish
Toner.
team to lose to Treviso in the,
Yeah,
in the
that's
league.
So
right.
like they have
Yeah.
they might target the
And
Irish
we've
games.
got our arses out of there, out of jail once or twice.
They're looking pretty appalling this year, though. I mean,
I think they're rebuilding.
Watched a lot of their game against the Ospreys, and
Yeah, I think they've gone back to scratch. I think it'll be 2 or 3 years before the Italian teams are worth anything in the league.
certainly
again.
be 2 or 3 months anyway.
Because
Whatever
I think-
about years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that long because I think that they've decided to go back to basics, as it were.
and Zebre Ulster, you got to think it's a home win for
For
the
For Zebre.
boys up the north. Then we have Edinburgh Connacht, and Connacht are kind of they've played Wales 4 last week. Now they're playing
Yeah.
Scotland 2.
Yeah.
So again, it's an opportunity for them to lay down a big marker to the league to say, well, we are in contenders for a qualification into the European Cup for next season.
It'd be nice if they caught Edinburgh napping, because it's in Edinburgh as far
Yeah,
as I know,
yeah.
and it'd be great if they just snuck in under the radar, and Edinburgh weren't expecting a Spanish Inquisition, and the next thing they're on their back looking at the stars.
Yeah.
That would make me very happy.
But
And obviously
I-
That's a
Pat
very
Lam too.
disturbing sound effect there.
I saw
Especially when you combine with the phrase "on their back."
Sorry, Dave. I'll work on that for next week.
like I saw some stat that of the matches during the season, like that are going to overlap with Six Nations and autumn internationals. Like there's a number of games that, while we're going to be shorn of quite a few players, and obviously most of the other bigger clubs will be as well, they're only going to be hit for 1 or 2 guys. So that's an
That's the
opportunity.
time, yeah.
That's the time for them to really make their
Well, see,
lack of
the only
internationals
problem is
play.
that's traditionally been the time when they should have done it in the past as well, and they haven't.
yeah. But I
And,
think
and we actually have.
but this is their strongest team,
yeah,
their
it is,
strongest
in a long time.
squad. Yeah.
I just hope they go over, win in Edinburgh, so they're just feeling a little bit too confident with 2 wins when we get in there.
Exactly. And the other big fixture is, I think, probably the best game of this, after ours is going to be Cardiff Glasgow, which 2 teams that are kind of been tipped to be challengers for next season. I know you don't rate the Blues, but
Yeah, well, I was just going to say one based on very real substance, and the other based on virtually no substance whatsoever.
The other based on comparisons of their team sheets to the other team sheets in Wales and a bit of rose tinted
Yeah.
whatever.
I
When
think-
you look at they've lost Lee Halfpenny and Robin Copeland, I'm not sure where they're getting all the confidence. Okay, they've got Gareth Anscombe in, and they've got a few people. I don't know when he's arriving. Do you know when he's arriving?
Adam Burns, Adam Jones.
Adam
Evan
Jones.
Jones, yeah, they sent him from the Ospreys, yeah.
A bit unfit and maybe a little bit of a spent force. Never adjusted to the new scrum laws. Still a quality guy, but on the wane. So how much they'll knock out of him, I don't know.
I'm not saying that the hope and if you like the hype around Cardiff is based on nothing. It's just I haven't seen it yet, and I'd have to see it. I mean, obviously
They could take
they played
the
Italian team,
Ospreys
so it's hard
place
to know.
in the Heineken Cup next year, possibly.
Osprey or Glasgow are a real team. We know that. We knew that last year. Obviously, we know it ourselves this year. So that'll tell us whether the talk about a blue renaissance is true or not.
Interestingly, crap and all as a season Cardiff had last year, they beat Glasgow home and away
Yeah, that's true.
last
Yeah,
season, amazingly.
And they always seem to draw each other in the Heineken Cup.
And they lost home and away to Zebre. Riddle me that. Explain that with some logic, please.
Cardiff Blues don't give a shit about playing for Cardiff.
Mm.
That's been the way it has been. I mean, there's always been. I think this year it's going to be different. I do believe that Cardiff have.
That logic doesn't explain why they beat Glasgow home and away, but I'll
The
go with it.
The big fixture. They make the effort for the big fixture. They don't make the effort for the small one. But I think Cardiff. I don't think that the hype about Cardiff is what they think it is. But I do think that they will be.
There or thereabouts.
They'll be the best of the Welsh, I think. But that's only because the Ospreys are rebuilding.
I don't know. I can see Scarlets being the best of the Welsh. We shall see.
Well, Ospreys did hammer Treviso 44-13 last
it,
weekend.
yeah.
Now, I know Treviso are a bit of a spent force at this stage.
We keep talking about the Ospreys being, that they've lost players and they
They've
still
signed
have
a couple of South African locks under the radar there.
but they also still have
And one guy's
Dan
gonna-
Bigger. They've got what's his name, the back row, the guy who would
Baker.
be Warburton.
Oh, sorry,
Did it. Yeah.
Lydiot, no, not Lydiot.
Chiprick.
Tuprich, yeah, who I think is just a wonderful player. And they still got Alan Wynne Jones is still there leading from the front. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not as bad as people make out that they
And
might
as
be.
they signed a South African guy they're one of their project players now for Wales. They wanted to
There's
get him qualified.
two
for-
South African project second rows. I didn't. Apparently, they signed one of them in April. I didn't
and
hear
one
anything
from the
about.
Bulls, I think. Like he's a fairly big name
Like
player.
they breed big second rows over there, so
Yeah.
they could be.
Like Stikes.
Shut up.
And Quinn Rue.
The Scarlets had. Well, I mean, he's young. You never know what might happen to him. The Scarlets have two South African second rows. One of whom is already Welsh qualified. I think Jake Ball.
Yeah.
He's played for Wales.
Yeah, he's the guy with the big beard.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where they're getting their power in the forwards, and that big guy behind them at 8.
It was good to hear the Sky commentator. I think it might have been Quinnell mentioned the Kilkenny Cat.
Did he?
Yeah, he was talking. He was commentating on the match. He says, we'll be going down the Cat for a few pops afterwards."
I wouldn't like to be in there at the same time as him. You have to turn around and he'd go through the window. Big gentleman.
A big man.
Well, anyway, thanks a million, lads, and thanks a million for watching. Cheers.